one of the things that I love to say to people is that you are the CEO of your own career. And if you are the CEO of your own career, you decide, right? You decide how you're going to work, the quality of work that you're going to deliver. You decide when you start and when you finish. And that doesn't mean that you come in at 10 and you leave at 3. It means that when the work environment is no longer welcoming, when it feels toxic, if you don't feel emotionally safe, you don't have to fret and say, oh, but I got this job and this pay and these benefits, and what will I do if I don't have this work? If you know your purpose and you know your talents, you can find something else.
Yeah.
You can move along because you get to decide how your career is going to unfold. You don't leave that to the purview of other people who just want your sweat equity. They're not so concerned about the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
So being the CEO of your own career, it in a way allows you to become that person who's deployed rather than employed.
A growing health, wellness, and leadership podcast designed for you to become your most empowered self.
Great day, amazing humans. Welcome to the Empowered in My Skin podcast, where our mission is to help 1 billion people in this world think in more empowering ways. Empowered humans empower humans. So you are the right spot to become a lead domino for empowerment today. So let the show begin.
Great day, amazing humans. Yes, welcome to the next episode of Empowered in My Skin. Our guest today is a trailblazer in communication and personal development with a career spanning nearly 3 decades. With a foundation in psychology and English, she's excelled in roles from mental health worker to acclaimed public speaker and corporate trader. Her expertise, highlighted by a master's degree in counseling psychology, has earned her recognition as an authority in anger management and effective communication. As the author of over a dozen books, including bestsellers like Anger Solutions, she's shared invaluable tools for transformation globally. Now you know why she's on this global podcast. Yes, recognized with prestigious awards such as the Niagara 40 Under 40 and the Woman of Heart Award. Her contributions to mental health and communication have left an indelible mark. Known affectionately as the Anger Lady, her insights inspire audiences worldwide. Today, we're privileged to delve into her remarkable career, exploring the wisdom and experiences that have shaped her impactful career. I trust, ladies and gentlemen, amazing humans over everywhere, that you're as excited as I am to learn more about our guest. So please give her a gigantic, ginormous podcast welcome to Julie Christiansen.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I love it. So I'm actually going to ask you about the Anger Lady. I want to know how you kind of got that moniker. But
Sure.
My first question to you is, what's been your most empowering thought you've had of the day so far?
The most empowering thought I've had today.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
It is a thought that I have had every day since about the first week of January.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that I'm surrendered.
Ooh. Oh my God, you're my kindred soul right now when you said that, because I'm reading The Untethered Soul.
Oh, yes.
Michael Singer.
Yeah, surrender for me is, I think it's just the season that I'm in.
Yeah.
Every morning when I wake up, that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, I surrender this day, I surrender my work, I surrender every interaction I have, every chaotic thing that happens. Yesterday, I accidentally deleted all 6,114 pictures off my computer.
How on earth did you do that? I'm in tech and I'm thinking that would take a long time to delete. You didn't have a chance to cancel?
Oh no, it was one of those
instantaneous
panic-stricken moments where it just went boop and they were gone. And I didn't freak out. A few years ago, if that had happened, I probably would have ended up in tears in bed. I would have had to cancel my clients and just, the whole day would have been over. And instead, I got my husband, who is a tech genius, and I was like, fix it.
Okay, so you got
Just
them back.
fix it. And then I walked away. I was like, I'm gonna get a shower, I'm gonna do my makeup, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna do all the things. And he got my pictures back and
Yeah.
I'm
I
good,
was gonna say, please tell me you got your pictures. But
At least I think I got them all back.
yeah.
I'm still
You know what
checking.
I think it's evident is I truly do believe that what you resist persists. And that's the art of surrender, I think, is where everything actually just starts to work in your favor.
Yes, letting things go. I mean, it's something that I teach and I have taught for years, but I don't think I hadn't sort of elevated to the level of letting everything go.
Mm-hmm.
I can let that hurt go. I can let that person go. I can let this thing, whatever it is, go. But in terms of letting go of my attachment to things that I can't control, that has been a beautiful journey since the beginning of this year. Yeah.
It's I swear to you, we are kindred spirits, because just this morning, my most empowering thought, and I shared it with my team. So I think I shared with you, I'm in technology. So we were waiting for people to assemble on a team meeting. And I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to just give everyone here the question I ask on my podcast, all my guests. I said, okay, so let's just go. Everyone, what's your most empowering thought? So it's really interesting because some people are like, I haven't had an empowering thought. I'm thinking, you probably have, you just weren't aware, right? Anyway, so I actually shared with them that mine really was, so I have this, like what's really been tagged to my name is, my mission in this world is to help 1 billion people think in empowering ways, because I truly believe empower people. So it's creating that lead domino, right? So every single person that passes by me, how can I help them be a lead domino for empowerment in the next moment that they have? And today I just took that up another level, because I know that I have a purpose and corporate. And I was like, what if we can build corporate spaces where everybody is, I'm going to use your word, surrendered, but the word for me was unbothered.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Like not clinging, like untethered from past experiences. We meet each other new on the day. We own our own space in every meeting. We're responsible for the emails we send. Right. You know what I mean? We receive and we get insatiably curious about something versus judgmental, and like it's actually possible. But it does start one human at a time.
I agree. I believe it is absolutely possible. I think people have to lean into the belief that it is for them. People will say, oh yeah, I believe that's possible, but do you believe it's possible for you?
Yes, yeah.
And
can you do it without expecting it from anyone else?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm doing it. I'm working on, I'm like, okay, at least let me do it. And I recognize there's no organization ever since 2016 that employs me. I'm not like I get a benefit of a paycheck, but I'm not employed. I'm deployed. Right. And so I think it's that mindset. Like it starts with that kind of mindset. Like you can't feel like an employee and then feel surrendered, because I think that's what like, if I think about what you said and what came to me is like, you're like, this world is working, like I'm here to serve a purpose. All of these things are not mine to own.
Right.
And so why not just continuously surrender myself?
Yeah, one of the things that I love to say to people is that you are the CEO of your own career. And if you are the CEO of your own career, you decide, right? You decide how you're going to work, the quality of work that you're going to deliver. You decide when you start and when you finish. And that doesn't mean that you come in at 10 and you leave at 3. It means that when the work environment is no longer welcoming, when it feels toxic, if you don't feel emotionally safe, you don't have to fret and say, oh, but I got this job and this pay and these benefits, and what will I do if I don't have this work? If you know your purpose and you know your talents, you can find something else.
Yeah.
You can move along, because you get to decide how your career is going to unfold. You don't leave that to the purview of other people who just want your sweat equity. They're not so concerned about the rest of your life, right? Yeah. So being the CEO of your own career in a way allows you to become that person who's deployed rather than employed.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thin. It's a thin. We're making it a thin. So I have, my God, I have so many questions. First of all, shout out to my team. They did some research, but I'm like, I think I'm about to like not even look at it because so many things just came up from what you just said. So the first one is, what is your viewpoint around comparisonitis? Like people, like, because I'm thinking about the situation you just talked about, and it's hard for people to wrap themselves around, but them and they and that, right? And then me, why, so what, like, when that comes to you and sort of the work that you do, what's your approach on helping them?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, so I'll try and compress it down. I think one of the first things that I would say is that is something I said to a client today, that just by virtue of you being on the planet means that you are enough. Your worth is already established. The fact that God saw fit to create you and place you here means that you have value by yourself. All the other things that we use to measure the value of a human being are surface and they're arbitrary. Like, how much money are you making? What kind of clothes are you wearing? How's your hair done? Where do you work? What community do you live in? What's your address? What's your zip code? None of those things actually make a true statement about your value or your worth. And so you can compare yourself to people all day long, but if you don't see your true value, you will always feel less than. You'll never feel enough, right? You will look at this person who has a leaner physique and say, well, I'm too fat. No, you're just different. That's all. You're just different. And I'll be honest, I compare what I'm doing with what other people are doing all the time, partly because I'm like a serial entrepreneur and I'm constantly looking at ideas and I'm like, ooh, I could do that,
but you do it in a way that serves you,
I try to. And a lot of the times when I do find myself looking at someone and saying, well, they're doing exactly what I've been doing and they're getting success and I'm not. Maybe they're not doing exactly what I've been doing. They're teaching what I've been teaching, but they're doing it in a way that gets eyeballs. And the way I've been doing it probably hasn't been, right? So then it's not so much a question of comparing myself to the other person, but saying, clearly it's not the messaging. Because my messaging is solid. So if it's not my messaging, then is it my delivery? Is it my marketing?
and what if it's none of
that I'm doing? And I don't think it's that I want to be like them. It's just that I want my message to reach the people I want it to reach. So if I see that someone else is getting a similar message out, it actually reinforces to me that my message has value. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that I get, that I feel very empowered by. There was my mind went somewhere else when you were saying when you were going, and I think the first thing that came up for me was like, I think for me right away, I have to stop myself, because a lot of times what I'm seeing already happened. And so I'm seeing somebody's glory story in my present moment in their past.
Right.
And comparing myself to what I'm seeing in somebody else's past obviously makes no sense, in the sense that I don't know the journey that they had to endure to get to there. And that would almost imply that I would need to have navigated that same journey.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's more like, what is about what am I seeing that I want to lock into and set as standards in my life? So it's almost like I always challenge myself. It's like, what you're like comparing yourself, like, stop the comparison, is what are you seeing that you're desiring?
Yes.
And have you been desiring it? Is it on your vision board? Is it already part of the blueprint? Like if it's not, then here's your chance to add it.
Right.
But comparisonitis almost, to me, gets you into this realm with you can't go and change the past.
It's
and you have to remember that
paralyzing.
what you're looking at is like, it's already done, right? Like it's,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, making those comparisons, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan. I mean, I utilize social media, I leverage social media, but I don't love it because I think that people get stuck in that mindset of comparison. They're looking at everybody else living their best life. And and they're comparing that to, well, I'm over here and I've got this minimum wage job and I'm not living the soft life. And, all of these things that they're
In your
seeing
present
online,
moment, yeah.
and then feeling badly about themselves. Whereas I'm like, well, success leaves clues. So when I look at what people are doing and I see that that's something that I aspire to myself, I'm like, all right, so what can I learn from this person? When Jay Shetty came out and started teaching stuff, I was like, bro, I've been saying those things for 20 years. Who are you? Who are you with your pretty green eyes and your nice hair? Like, why? Why are you stealing my message and just like making it famous? But afterwards I was like, okay, but Jay Shetty is one thing that I have never truly been, and that is consistent. Right. So I learned that early on watching his videos. I was like, okay, this guy is just he's creating these videos. At the beginning, they weren't even good quality, but he was just doing it. He was getting the message out there. He was being consistent in his delivery, and suddenly his audience started to grow on YouTube. So what I took from Jay Shetty's experience, as I understood it, was that if I want to build a community, I can't do it ad hoc. I have to be more consistent. So I need to be consistent in my messaging. I need to choose a platform. I need to live there, like all those sorts of things. And so I've really narrowed down the platforms that I interact with people on daily, because I want to impact my community in a positive way. But if I'm just sort of diving in and then diving out, you don't hear from me for 3 months,
you're not gonna get any traction.
Like that inconsistency will not get the job done.
Yeah.
So I would say, and leverage is one of my favorite words, as you're going to see. It's the name of my company. But I really feel like if I can leverage the comparison to move out of, well, I'm just going to sit here paralyzed because clearly I'm not good enough and I'll never will be. There's always somebody better. But instead I go, okay, so what are they doing that I could reverse engineer and then do better in, right?
I love that. So, Anger Lady.
I wish there was a great story about this.
Yeah,
but there's not.
Where did that come from?
So the short story is that I used to belong to one of our local chambers of commerce.
Okay.
And my sister-in-law, my former sister-in-law, who is also a woman of color, we don't really look alike, but you know how it is. So she would go to chamber. She's a realtor, and I do what I do. And so sometimes we would go to the same events, and sometimes she would go to an event, and then I would go to something else. We weren't always like intersecting in the same space. And so people started coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I know somebody who wants to sell a house." And I would go, no, that's Diana. I'm Julie. And then they would go, "Oh, you're the anger lady, right?"
Oh,
it started. Are you the realtor or are you the anger lady? I'm the anger lady. Oh, okay. That's the whole story.
I figured obviously you've really started to take on, sort of a desire, a mission to really help people through like conflict resolution and just dealing with anger. But where did that come from? Like, what was the catalyst, and how did you know that this is? I just don't want people to be angry. Like, what was it?
Yeah, I guess, if I go back, I could go all the way back to childhood, but I won't bore you with all of that. When I graduated university and started in my first job working in mental health, it was a residential program. And within that residential program, we were housing people with severe mental health disorders. And, you got 10 people, 5 men, 5 women, with everything from schizophrenia to bipolar to dissociative identity disorder and all the things in between, living under one roof and trying to get along, right, cohesively. Sometimes that didn't work out. And so on one of those occasions, my boss and our team, we were brainstorming. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? And I said, well, maybe we could put together an anger management program and just teach it, to the people in the evenings. And so we started doing research and we couldn't find anything. And, I still had my university account. So I was going to the university library. This is pre-internet for everyone going, why are you going to a library? Because that's all we had. It's all we had. I'm old, okay? Just deal with it.
You've been young a really long time.
I'm seasoned. So, after, pulling out all the books I could find and whatever, we cobbled something together. And as I was curating the content, I realized that I had a lot of stuff I needed to work on. A lot. And I realized that there were things about the way that I was trying to regulate my emotions and the way that I was trying to get my problems solved that really were not serving me. And so I just took it upon myself to kitchen test everything. And I tried all the exercises. Some of them, we ran the program twice in that house. And some of the programs I was like, oh, no, we can't, the exercises, I was like, we can't do this again. Like, this is not working. And so I just kept tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. And everyone else forgot about it because the job was done. We didn't need it anymore. And I just kept working at it. And so I moved from one house to another, took it with me, ran it in a group there. And then as I was leaving that job, I was like, I think I've got something here. Right? Like I think this is good content. And I know it's changing my life. So maybe it'll change the lives of other people too. And so I rebuilt it and continue to rebuild it. Like it's a living, breathing program. It's constantly changing and evolving. But it's impacted a lot of people's lives for good. So I'm really proud of it.
Wow, girl, I don't know how have we not
I know.
met? Because even I think about Empowered My Skin, it came from very, very similar parallel, right? Like I had listened to a sermon. It was actually Tory Roberts. I don't know if you know, yeah. And he talked about a Ford mentality, I think it was called. And he shared like 4 ways of being. No, he shared four steps, right? And very similar to you, I'm like, I was at a point in my life where I was really just working on my personal development. I just wanted to be a better human. I actually want to live out my name that God, it means God's gift. And I really truly wanted to, I didn't want to die without being that, And so, yeah, so things would come to me like organically and very similar to you, right? Like, it's just like, let me try it. And then it started working. Like, it's just like, I don't know how to express it. Like, there's a way when you're in the flow of life.
Yes.
So I tell everyone, like, if there's anything you could just take from what Julie just shared, like even your book, right? Like maybe we'll get to I'm looking at it right now. Maybe there's some principles that she's going to share today. Like, you got to just try it. It's going to work. Consistency is key. Just try it and keep trying it and keep trying it. And one thing I think I love that you said, you tweaked it. And it's still evolving and it's changing. It's probably evolving. So let me ask you a question. Like, is it evolving because you're still bringing your personal experiences? You're still fine tuning yourself, and you're like, let me.
It's a combination of those things. I mean, I certainly am continuing to learn and make new distinctions. And as I make those new distinctions, I fold them into my work. Much of the new stuff that has come to me over the last several years is in the Rise of Rage. So I folded, I revamped the program last year. I updated the manual, updated the workbook, and I put in some of that new content in there so that our facilitators and trainers would know what I'm talking about when I deliver these things and when they see them in the book. but also there's new research. More people are writing about anger, more people are studying anger. Polara comes out with a rage index every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
you know, the new rage index actually now puts Ontarians at the top of the rage index, which we've beat out Alberta finally, and it's not a good thing.
No, I was just gonna say that
We're
doesn't. It
the
sounds like you
angriest
don't want to be at the
province.
top. Yeah. Yeah.
We're the angriest province in Canada, and the rage index score for Canadians in general is actually higher now than it was in August and November of last year. So
And I'm
when we
assuming
look at
COVID
that kind of
had.
research, it's like, okay, so based on what's happening in our community, we need to shift some things, we need to change some things. And then some of the content, that was in the first manual in 1997 is no longer valid today. These examples that I was using from back then are like, oh, I'm so sad. I'm just gonna go and iron some clothes. Oh no. No, we're gonna take that one out. We don't iron anymore. Permanent press everything.
Some of us still iron. I'm wearing linen right now. Well, my husband irons. Yeah.
But it's that notion of gender-based roles and those sorts of things
Yeah.
pulled out, right?
Yeah.
And we've updated our intake forms and those sorts of things to reflect gender fluidity and those sorts of things, because we want our content to be inclusive. So we've made little changes like that based on the request from the users of the program to make sure that it's up to date and it's relevant.
So what can you sort of share to the listeners right now? Because anger is a real thing, right? It's an emotion. I try as much as I can. Like I said, desiring to live an unbothered life does mean you choosing to surrender every day. Does mean when anger shows up, which it might, you have to make a decision on whether you're going to lean into it or you're going to lean away.
Yeah. From
whatever it is and allow it to. So, but there's a lot of people that are like, I don't get what you ladies are talking about. Like, like, what are you talking about? Anger is a thing. It's a human. I have that conversation. It's a human. It's a valid feeling. I'm allowed to be angry. Yes, you are. So what do you say to somebody who is, let's just say there are people that are like, listen to this and they're like, Julie, I want to really start to be less angry, because I'm assuming that's what you do. You help people be less angry.
Well, I wouldn't say that I help them to be less angry, because your anger just is.
Okay.
It is what it is. Just the way your happiness or your sadness or your grief or your fear or whatever, it just is.
So it's all valid. So give me the language. What's the language?
So basically, what I want people to understand is that all of this narrative that you see circulating on the internet about anger being secondary to something else, anger is a secondary emotion. If there's anger, look deeper and you'll find something else. No. I can't stress that enough. That is not true. And the science does not back that up. What the science tells us is that anger is a God-given, natural, innate emotion that we see children experiencing as early as the age of 1 year old. So it's something that develops in us naturally, just as much as happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, contempt, all the other emotions. When we see that graphic of the anger iceberg, and we go, oh, anger is what you see on the top, emotions are what you see underneath. That is a fallacy, because anger is also an emotion. What you are seeing is behavior. You are seeing behavior. What is secondary to the behavior is the emotion. Okay, but anger is actually a primary emotion. It's a basic emotion. It's not secondary to anything. So that's the first thing I want people to understand. The second thing I want people to understand is that as long as you are trying to manage your anger, you are missing the boat. You're completely missing the boat, because anger serves a purpose. When we look at the Word of God, just as a reference point, Look at how many times God gets angry. I haven't counted because ain't nobody got time for that, but it's a lot. Okay. God gets angry a lot, and we are made in the image of God. So it follows then that we should also have the ability to get angry. And why does God get angry? Because there are problems. Why do we get angry? Because there are problems. But when we work on anger management, we are trying to fix our emotional state without first solving the problem that generated that emotional state in the first place. And that's why I call anger management a fallacy, because we're over here trying to tell people to take a walk, count to 10, take a deep breath, do something else, go hit a heavy bag, when the problem is still over here festering. So now I've gone to the gym, I've done yoga, I've worked out, I've gone swimming, I've gone in the sauna, and I come home and the problem is still sitting there going, and I'm still mad. Right? So all the exercise and all the other things helps to let go of the energy, but it doesn't solve the problem. The only way I can solve the problem is with communication.
Mhm.
And we don't teach people that. We teach people that anger is dangerous and that it's destructive and that it's aggressive and that it's violent. Therefore, we should fear it. And that's why when people feel angry, they
close.
they either internalize it and they
Mhm.
shy away from it, or they're just like, well, I'm going to hell anyway. So they just
Mhm. Mhm.
tear the world down, right?
Mhm.
When I first wrote my other book, Anger Solutions, people would be attracted to the cover and then they'd get up close and they'd see the word anger and literally take 2 steps back. And I was like, what is that? Like, what are you all so afraid of? This is just a natural thing that we feel just the same way you feel grief when somebody dies. You feel anger when a problem presents itself and you don't know how to solve it.
Mhm.
So why don't we focus on solving our problems? Because once the problem is solved, the anger goes away by itself.
Mhm.
The anger only exists because the problem exists.
So do you believe that you can have a problem without anger?
Absolutely. Some
Okay.
problems make you sad,
Yeah, okay.
right?
So
Some
I have so
some
something
are
that you said,
disappointing,
or
it's
disappointed.
not
Yes,
always
it
anger,
doesn't, it's
but
not always anger. Okay. So so this is so fascinating because I don't know if it's challenging a belief or conviction. I'm going to say a conviction that I've had. So there's a book I read called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I don't know, have you read it?
I have not.
Okay. So in the book, she talks about love and fear. Babies are born into love and we learn fear. And then fear is anything that's contrary to love. So anger is expressed, rage, disappointment, frustration, unforgiveness, like anything that's contrary to love. So, but something that you said is that anger is was anger was something that was kind of bestowed to us as a human being from God, which, by the way, I looked it up, 25 Bible verses about anger of God. I don't know how many times the word, but and so it's just challenging my thinking because until you know what to name something, you don't actually know what it is. So what I mean by that is if I'm a baby and I'm born, I don't know if like if I want this and somebody doesn't takes it from me and I start to cry or start to I start to express myself because I now don't have this object. It's somebody else that's telling me that now I'm angry. So I'm learning that and that takeaway implies that I'm angry. So at some point, I'm just, again, I because I've been so convinced about babies are born into love. And anything that's contrary to that is something that we learned. Right. And so if we learn, so the whole premise around the book is, and that's what informed my personal journey is if you learn these things, if you learn jealousy, if you learn frustration, if you learn, and maybe anger is not a good, but if you learn all of these things, then you can unlearn them also. And you can move through life from a place of love.
So I'm
Anyway,
going to challenge this in two ways.
Because
And challenge this in two ways. The first thing that I will say, actually, I got to write this down because I know how my brain works. It's gonna forget. What was the last thing that you just said to me?
That you can unlearn it. That if you learn it, you can unlearn it.
Okay. So the first thing I'm gonna say is that if, let's just follow the premise. If we are created in the image of God, and God was able to be angry, and Jesus, who was the earthly representation of Father God, was able to be angry also, and without sin, it follows then that my anger, your anger, is not sinful. And if God is love, and God still got angry, then that anger cannot be contrary to love. Do you understand the logic of that?
So I think we're now I'm going to say something, because God is love. God is not anger.
But God feels anger and expresses anger.
Right. So but God is love. I think we agree.
Yes.
And God can move from a place of love.
Even when he's angry.
But there are things that he had a perspective on, that God had a perspective on, that he chose to be angry about. But he's not anger, just that situation. And I'm not saying.
No, I feel you. You're almost there. You're almost there. Let me take you the rest of the way.
Okay.
Let me take you the rest of the way. Because God expressed his anger because he loved. Okay? Whenever he was angry, it was because I love you so much and I have designed this life for you. I've laid out a plan. I've signed a covenant with you. You're breaking the covenant and it hurts me and I'm angry about it. Okay? I still love you, but I feel this kind of way.
So I don't know that God would say, I am angry.
But what does the Bible say? And the wrath of God and the anger of God was kindled.
But it doesn't say I am angry. But it doesn't say I am angry. It's interpreting.
No, I mean, it doesn't use that language as in I identify as this thing.
But I guess that's where I'm at, is that people identify. And you know what? I would say now that I still have where so I actually believe that chances are, like, I actually get it. Like, anger is a little bit different. Like, as I think about, like, love versus fear, like when you start to talk about jealousy, frustration, all this, any other, I think anger is a little bit in a different category.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What does anxiety look like?
I think it looks different on different people.
Okay. What does anger look like?
I think it looks different on different people.
Okay.
Because there's some people that could be angry and I would never see it. So back to your whole, it's a behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an underlying, emotion.
Yeah, so let me give you this context. You said that anything that is learned can be unlearned.
Yes, we're on the same point.
So here's the distinction that I want to make. Emotions are felt.
Got it.
Behaviors are learned.
Got it. So you can unlearn behavior.
So when a baby is crying, it's crying because it's the only way it knows how to communicate. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. When the baby is saying, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm dirty, I don't like the way this diaper feels, they don't have language. Crying is the only way that they can communicate, right? And when they're that age, when they're pre-verbal, they're not going to receive, oh, baby's angry. No. Baby's hungry, baby's tired, whatever. But when they get to be about a year old and they're trying to develop their autonomy and do things on their own, they're learning how to crawl, or they're trying to walk, or they're trying to put blocks together and take them apart. And they realize that they can't do it because they don't have the upper body strength or whatever it is, they don't have the dexterity. And you see them frustrated and they throw the toy away and start to cry. That's when you see anger developing. So now you can say, I see that they are experiencing the emotion.
Yeah.
And they are acting on that emotion in a way that expresses what they're feeling. And so what we need to do for kids is we need to say, you know what, how you feel is okay. I told this story last night in another interview that when my granddaughter was just little, she was doing the blocks and she couldn't pull them apart. And she did exactly that. She threw them and she started to cry. And I held her and I started to say, oh, baby, don't cry. And then I caught myself. And I looked her in the face and I said, you know what? Cry all you want. Cry all you want. Your anger and your frustration is valid. Okay, it's valid. You are allowed to feel frustrated. You are allowed to be angry that you don't know how to do this. It's okay. Throwing the blocks in frustration, probably you could have done something better, but you're just, you're 18 months old, right? So you're going to learn. But if you need to cry, cry. It is okay. And what we do instead is we say, oh, stop it. It's okay. Big boys don't cry. Be a big girl. We use all this language. And what we're telling our children is that what you're doing is equivalent to how you're feeling. And neither of those things is okay. Right. And then we carry that with us into adulthood. And then we say things like, well, I need to unlearn that. No, your anger is just what it is. It's going to show up wherever there's a problem. I guarantee you there's nothing you can do about that because that's physiology, right? It's automatic. When someone cuts you off on the highway and then flips you the bird like it was your fault, you're going to be upset.
Okay, so so I have a question for you there because somebody cuts me off on the highway and flips me the bird does not make me angry. So technically you can have the same action and two people experience it very differently.
Yes. Yeah, because one of the things that I borrowed from Tony Robbins is this notion that life only has, the only meaning that life has is the meaning that we assign to it. And so if someone flips you the bird as you're driving on, you're like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. Of course, you're not going to be angry about it. But if I'm like over here, minding my business, drinking my water, driving carefully, and you nearly run me off the road and try to kill me, because of the context that I have in working with motor vehicle accident victims, in counseling, working with insurance and doing all those things, I'm going to be like, this is how, and I have responded like this. This is how accidents happen. And like you're driving like a maniac over here and I will get wound up. That's where my brain goes. But I still have a choice as to whether or not I'm going to retaliate or I'm going to take a deep breath and exhale because I'm safe. And I'm going to arrive at my destination safely and everything is okay. I still have that choice. I also have the choice to run the guy off the road, take the machete out from under my front seat and slash his tires to teach him a lesson. I can do that too.
So yes, I definitely understand, for the listeners, you get to choose the behavior. You get to choose your reaction.
Yes.
Your reaction is your responsibility. But I also kind of hear somewhere in there that you also, for the main fact that I recognize, like I kind of handled the low-hanging fruit because I think I also understood the physiology of how our emotions can harm ourselves. And I realized like our bodies don't necessarily know how to discern stress and where the stress is coming from. And just teaching myself and unlearning things that used to make me, which is why I'm back to, can't you unlearn things that used to make you angry? You can unlearn being bothered by those things too. Right?
I think we can learn to detach from things that really have no real value or import in our lives. One of the things that I did over COVID very specifically was I stopped watching the news. I stopped listening to the news because I found myself screaming at my radio or yelling at the television every time a certain orange-faced, blonde-haired person showed up on the screen.
That we're going to name unnamed that better not.
And I would just lose my mind because I'm like, even with our own local politicians, provincially and federally, and sometimes locally, I would be like, oh my gosh, I can hear the lie in your voice. And I would just get wound up. So I was like, okay, I need to turn that off because I express my displeasure or my pleasure with our elected officials at the polls, right? If I want to lobby, I can go lobby. There are mechanisms for me to communicate my displeasure with whatever's happening in the world right now. Screaming at the TV is not one of those ways. It's winding me up and making me anxious and angry. So I'm going to stop doing that because that is a stimulus that is generating emotions that I no longer need or want to have in my life. So I have distanced myself from things. I'm not completely ignorant to what's going on in the world, but I don't read the comments. I don't scroll through. I don't argue with trolls. I'm not about that life. So it's like I look and see, okay, what is bringing value to me and what is actually causing me to go into those old patterns and behavior. Those types of behaviors that I don't want to be a part of my life. I will distance myself from those things. But even so, from day to day, right? I meet up with all kinds of people in my private practice and out in the community networking and whatever. And sometimes people say things and it pokes at something. That's something that I need to work out. Why was that bothersome to me? Can I unprogram that? Right. And that is the beauty and the sacredness of doing self-work.
Yeah. So I
And
have a question for you on that.
Sure.
Self-work. So back to something that you said earlier, right? Like when you were giving an example and that 18-month-old felt frustrated and this, and you're like, you have a right to be angry and frustrated and this and the other. What do you do with your clients that saying challenge constantly makes them feel angry and frustrated over and over? Every single time you're like, you have a right to feel angry and frustrated. At what point do you get them out of that cycle?
So I'm going to validate it one time, or maybe, depending on how things are unfolding, if it's an ongoing issue that they're dealing with and there's new developments, then absolutely I'm going to validate the feelings, because what I want is for the client not to shy away.
You don't want them to close
from what's happening in here. We've got to be honest about that. If we're denying how we feel, we can't repair it. Right? Like if I'm saying, well, I wish the accident never happened. Listen, you've got to reach a place of acceptance, because you cannot heal if you can't even accept that you've been injured. How can you do the work of healing if you're still refusing to believe or to accept that the injury even occurred in the first place? So we've got to do that work. And one of the things that I say in the book often is that every problem is at its heart a relationship problem. And the first relationship that we need to work on is the relationship with ourselves. Right? And so, yeah, I do believe that your anger is justified and it's valid for you to feel that way. Now, what are we going to do about it? Let's choose the behaviors carefully. Let's choose how you respond. Maybe it's something you don't need to respond to at all, right? Maybe it would be better for you to just stay silent and let the silence do the talking, right? And so we can work through the different ways that we can respond, and we can ask the question, what's the best thing that can happen if you do this? What's the worst thing that can happen if you do this? Because a lot of times people get stuck on the worst thing. Oh, if I talk to my boss, if I say what I really want to say, I'm going to get fired. But what's the worst thing that can happen? I mean, what's the best thing that can happen? If you talk to your boss, I might get a promotion, something might change. The other person who's driving me crazy might get transferred, right? So we have all these things. Okay, so is it worth the risk or isn't it? We can't do risk assessment just based on the worst thing that can happen, because the worst thing rarely happens, right? But we've got to be able to weigh it out equally. And so You know, if I say to myself, and I'm using real life examples because I'm a real person and I do get angry and I don't shy away from saying that. If my initial response is to tell you where to go and how to get there, and to take the horse you rode in on with you when you go, I have to ask myself, what is the best thing that can happen if I say that?
Mm-hmm.
The best thing that can happen is that I feel superior and powerful for about 5 seconds, after which I will be addled with guilt because that's not the person that I want to be, right? So the worst thing that can happen if I say that is that this person goes and tells the whole world what I said to them.
Mm-hmm.
I lose my reputation. Nobody buys my books. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that I've worked for just goes, okay, so clearly I'm not going to choose that response.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we learn how to do that ongoing self-evaluation and to ask ourselves, what's going on? What does it mean? How do I feel? What do I want? What's my desired outcome? What can I do to get that outcome? What's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And then choose the best course of action that is most likely to get you closer to that desired outcome, that desired positive outcome, right?
I mean, I'm so over it. I could go on and on. Like I was so captivated by that point, and I just want to go into another one with you. But it's like,
Are we
I
out of
also
time
want to
already?
talk about the rise of rage. And I mean, the book was published on February 13th. I like the title, by the way.
Thank you.
So in the interest of time, I didn't even I wanted to talk more about your book, but I still do I want to ask you some questions around it. So, what do you hope readers will take away from this book, and how do you envision it making a positive impact on their lives?
Oh, such a great question. What I hope for readers is that they will see the truth of what anger is. They will see the truth about anger in themselves, that they will stop punishing themselves for the way that they've reacted in the past, understanding that now they have a set of tools and strategies that they can use to evaluate every trigger, to make informed decisions based on their desired positive outcomes, rather than just trying to fix a feeling or to manage an emotion. Now they're doing the work of designing their life, right? When I look at something that's upsetting and I say, but this is what I want. I want to stay married. I want my children to be happy, healthy, contributing members of society. I want to have quality time with my grandkids. I want them to know who I am. I want them to be excited to see me. That means I have to nurture the relationships with my children so that I can stay connected to my grandchildren. It means that I have to rearrange my work schedule so that I can spend at least one day per week with those little babies, right? I'm making decisions now with intentionality rather than just going through my life on autopilot and reacting to everything as it comes. That's what I want for my readers. I want for my readers to walk through life with their eyes wide open, plotting out the map on MapQuest before they get to their destination, knowing how they're going to get there and making sure that they're taking the safest, most intentional steps to get there.
Wow, that's powerful. That's why it's going to be a bestseller. It already is. It's already been. It's already there. It's already
doing very well.
New York Times bestseller. It's a great title.
Thank you.
Looks like a labor of love. So I'm gonna commit myself to reading it and getting you back on to talk about it.
That would be amazing. Yeah, it's it is. There was so much more that I wanted to write. I probably wrote 30,000 words more than what the publisher had asked for. At one point, I called my editor and I said, what should I do? Should I still have 3 more chapters to write? Should I keep going or should I stop? And he said, no, just keep going. But at some point I had to stop. There's so much more that I could have shared, but it really has been a labor of love putting this book together, and I'm super proud of it. And you know, the feedback I'm getting so far has been really positive, and I'm just super pleased that this is getting a bigger platform and
Yeah,
reaching more people.
I love it. Love it. So I'm going to take you through some rapid thrivers. When you think of somebody who inspires you, who comes first to mind?
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Jesus? Yeah, okay. We can
So
go.
many. Oh, so many people. Oh my gosh, who inspires me? Um, Maya Angelou comes to mind. Um, Shonda Rhimes,
Mm,
just doing amazing things. You know who I love to watch right now is Tabitha Brown. I'm just loving her journey and her rise. My mother, my late mom, a huge inspiration. She's why I write. Um,
That's beautiful.
I think of some of the people that I had that I was blessed to have in my life in the early days. My first book was dedicated to all of them. Mr. David Whale, who was an English teacher, David Gamble, Elizabeth Eagles, my grade 6 teacher who first noticed my talent and said, you gotta do more of this. Rosemary Hoey, my grade 12 and grade 13 English teacher who took me aside one day in class and said, never, ever, ever be ashamed of who you are. Like, I will never forget that woman as long as I live. So just some beautiful, unnamed, faceless people who really had a tremendous impact on my life. I would say that those would top the list.
Love it. A daily activity that helps you stay empowered.
Walking. Yeah.
A book that
Prayer
helps.
for sure. Prayer, meditation, and walking. I try to walk at least 20 minutes every day. It just being in the sun, breathing the fresh air, looking at my neighborhood, spending time with my husband. That is a very restorative activity for me.
Winter, rain, or shine?
Winter, rain, or shine.
Okay. Or I should say snow, rain, or shine. Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
What is a book that's helped you what is a book that's helped you on your empowerment journey?
Again, so many. I'm a voracious reader. I read on average 4 to 10 books a week.
You finish them?
I'm an absolute book nerd.
Do you speed read?
I do. I finish them. I love books.
Do you speed read or
My
do you read
Kobo
them?
is full.
Okay, so are you speed reading or you're reading them page?
I'm speed reading, and then if I'm really impacted by it, I will go back and read it again. One of the books that has
a
really
week?
impacted me, yeah, I know it's crazy.
How many hours do you spend reading?
A couple hours a night.
That's a lot of books. I don't know
It's a
how
lot
you
of books. I can read an entire, if I'm reading fiction, I can read an entire book in one night, one sitting. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm a book nerd, and I studied Evelyn Wood's speed reading program, so I can get through stuff pretty quick.
Okay, I might have to go and take up speed reading again because I'm not working my way through books that quickly. Ow.
One of the books I absolutely devoured last year or the year before was Rachel Rogers' We Should All Be Millionaires.
Hmm.
If you are a Black woman or a woman of color and you are looking for a way to up level your earnings and to build your business, whatever it is, I highly recommend this book.
Okay,
It
we
is
should all
so
be
good.
millionaires. Okay, so the Rise of Rage and We Should All Be Millionaires.
Yes, yeah, We Should All Be Millionaires. Terrific book.
Okay, what is an app that helps you every day stay empowered?
I don't really use apps. One of the ones that I do use from time to time is Dailyo, and it's a mood tracker. So I can go in and I can track my mood for the day. I can keep a little journal that says, you know, this is what's going on. I tend to use it when I'm highly stressed because I want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do, and so I keep myself accountable by keeping notes. So I can track my mood, I can document, and it has little tips and tools to help you, you know, stay on track and take care of your mental health. Yeah, and I was using another app called Relax Melodies. I think they changed the name. I don't know what it's called now, better sleep or something like
Okay.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But those would be two that I turn to quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So what is one misconception that people have of you as they see you, working this world?
People think I'm extroverted, and I'm so not.
That smiled.
I border whenever I take a personality test, I border right on introversion and extroversion. And so I can slip easily into the extrovert role, but I can't stay there very long.
Yeah, I get that.
Eventually, too much peopling drains my energy. And once I'm done, if I'm at a conference or teaching a seminar, a keynote speech, whatever, I'm playing full out on the extrovert side. When I get back to my hotel room, I want to eat dinner
And just
and
chill out, yeah.
mindlessly watch television, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I need the silence in order to recover from the exertion of being extroverted. So,
it's really interesting because I actually did a podcast episode on this, like stop with the labels, and I I've certainly given up labeling myself introvert or extrovert, and I find that when we put these labels on ourselves, I think you could appreciate that, we actually lose the gift of being able to communicate our preferences and who we are when in different dynamics and how we show up. Because I've seen many introverted people who look like complete extroverts when they're around people that they know really, really well. And so, so I love that you say that, because a lot of people, in large part, I start to do that a lot because people just assume that I'm just an extrovert. And I'm thinking, yeah, between 4 and 8, when the humans are sleeping, I'm like, that's my time. I want to be, because when y'all up right, I gotta actually talk to y'all. I gotta motivate you. I gotta give a lot of energy. Come 7:30, my phone's like Fort Knox. Nobody's getting through. Like, as you get through, you're on the inner. You're on the inner of the inner.
Yes, exactly.
So I think I actually ask people, talk to me through that, and a lot of times you get to this point where you see, no, it's how your personality sort of comes alive, or, navigates different scenarios. So I love that. So where do we find more of you online?
You will find me, oh gosh, you'll find me on Facebook, but I'm not really interacting on Facebook as much as I used to. You'll find me more on LinkedIn, and just literally just search my first and last name with no dots or anything, no dashes, just Julie Christiansen. You'll find me. On Instagram, I am Jules Christiansen, because Julie Christiansen was already taken.
Okay.
So I'm at JULV_Christiansen. And on Twitter, I am at the Anchor Lady.
Okay.
And where else am I? That's about it. Oh, of course, I have a YouTube channel, and I also have a podcast titled Freedomology. You can find that on Spotify. And we are now in season 3, just recording the last few episodes to upload there. So
I love it.
if you go to my Instagram and hit my link tree, you'll catch everything.
I love it. So this podcast is called Empowered in My Skin, and I want to know what that means to you.
What that means to me is I stay true to the person that I desire to be. No matter what anybody says to me, no matter how anybody treats me, no matter what buttons people try to push, I will always be true to the person that I desire to be. And so if I desire to be a person of integrity, if I want to communicate with love first, if I want to be compassionate and a person of hospitality, that is who I'm going to be. Even if it means I get burned sometimes, I'm going to stay true to the person that I want to be, because I believe wholeheartedly that I was put on this planet for a purpose. And I'm not going to let somebody's foolish behavior divert me from my purpose.
Yeah, I love that.
For me, being empowered in my skin means that whether I weigh 200 pounds or 120, whether I'm old and gray and withered, or I'm still spry and energetic, I'm going to be true to the person that I believe I should be.
I love that. Thank you so much. I've actually really grown to love you. And I will tell you that in 279 episodes, because that's how many, this is probably one of my longest for what definitely the longest is season 6. So if you, any listener, I hope you get to the end, because I haven't decided in episode whether or not this is going to be a part 1 and part 2, so I can actually keep listeners engaged.
Right.
Because I really do want people to get right to the end. I thought it was rich. I thought it was great. I was so engaged. Team, I asked for grace. I think I maybe asked one question you researched. And I know you put work and effort into it, so oh, please. It was important. It helped. It actually, she covered it. She covered all the other stuff. As I scanned the questions, she covered it. You'll see. But Julie, you are, like I said, I almost forgot I'm in an interview, right? Like we have to figure out how we continue to stay connected. I could talk
Absolutely.
to you. The work you're doing is immensely, immensely important. I think so many things went through my head. How do I get her in my organization? How does she talk to my team? How do I become her best friend? But so I was like, anyway.
I love it.
So there will be more. Something, I don't know what it is yet, but there's definitely going to be more. But love how God is using you. This world is so blessed to have you. And so to everyone that's tuned in, I'm sure you're definitely more empowered. And yeah, I suggest if you're not only following her, follow her. Yeah, that's the one you want to follow. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you this evening.
And to everyone that's listening, this is where I say we're out. Bye-bye.
There you have it. I trust that you're feeling more empowered in your skin. And as the late Dr. Maya Angelou says, when you get, you give, when you learn, you teach. So it would mean so much for us at EIMS if you share this episode and tag us, or teach an insight that you learned from today's episode on your socials and tag us. And remember to go over onto iTunes and leave us a review, or follow us on socials at Empowered in My Skin. But most importantly, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.